But first of all, I wanted to address something that I touched on yesterday, and it's about kids and their horrible work ethic and why we got so many goddamn socialists in the world today. Now, have you noticed that the easier our lives have gotten, the more socialists there seem to be out there? Could it be that there's a correlation between dumb young cunts who've never worked a day in their lives and people who want free shit because they don't understand where it fucking comes from? Because life just seems so easy. Everything's been handed to me. I've never had to work for anything a day in my life. Mommy and Daddy gave me everything, and now I want Mommy and Daddy to be the government. Yeah, and they could just continue to give me shit. I don't know where it comes from. I don't care where it comes from. That's why they're all such economic illiterates, right? They don't want to know, like this Ocasio-Cortez pinhead. Oh, nobody has to work. Life has just gotten so easy, and technology has just gotten so advanced. We don't even need jobs. Just print money and give people all they need. Really? Who's going to fucking grow the food, pinheads? Huh? It'll just grow itself. We can just have jungles, and we won't cut down trees anymore, and we'll just plant lots of trees, and we'll plant corn, too, and the corn, even after one season, somehow it'll just replant itself, right? Crops will just magically grow themselves. Self-growing crops. Yeah, the seeds that fall off, they'll fly away. The seeds that we don't get, and they'll replant themselves. Oh, God. Oy vey. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. I mean, that's a big part of why we have so many of these young new socialists in the world today, right? Because they've never had jobs. They've never had to work a day in their lives. They don't understand where stuff comes from, how stuff gets produced. And they don't have any marketable skills either, by the way, right? It doesn't help when you get out of university and you have, like, zero marketable skills and you've been told your whole life, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want to be. That's not necessarily a good thing, right? A lesbian dance major theory. I mean, majoring in lesbian dance theory or some shit. Yeah, you can be whatever you want. When people hear that message, I think a lot of the times they think that's some kind of good message. Not necessarily. Because what it sounds like to a kid, when a kid hears it, is that I can actually be anything. I could be a cowboy. I could be an astronaut. I can be a whatever, right? I mean, they think they can be anything. A clown. I could be a clown, right? I can go to mime school and study miming. Yeah, you could do all that. Yeah. You won't make any money. You'll live in a cardboard box behind the local A&P, but hey, yeah, you can do anything, sure. Because there's a lot of taxpayers there willing to subsidize that shit, right? Oh, my God. So, yeah, they've got this idea that somehow that they're entitled, right? They think they should be able to do whatever the fuck they want. If I want to make a living by sitting on the corner and strumming a guitar, I should be able to do that. Yeah. Well, you should. Absolutely. Just so long as you don't take any taxpayer money and the only money that you make is the quarters that people toss in your guitar case, right? That's it. No! I want a guaranteed income, too. Because I never worked a day in my life and I don't know where it all comes from. That's why the system is so fucked up, right? These kids go to school for 12 years and they don't have any marketable skills. How is that possible? How is that fucking possible? What is that? That if you do something like for 10,000 hours, you'll have mastered it. Like that's about how long it takes to master any one thing. About 10,000 hours of practice, and trust me, I know I've mastered a couple of things myself, and yeah, that's about right. Could take anywhere from 10 to 30 years, depending on how much time you put in per day, and depending on what you're doing, you might not be able to put in hours and hours, especially if it's something that's very physically demanding. So, if you're talking about something that's physically demanding, you could be looking at 30 years of practice, right? Yeah, boy, that's a lot of work. You think any of these kids have mastered anything? You think they've learned anything of worth in these crappy government schools? They go in day after day after day. What are they learning? What are they learning? How to regurgitate dates? They're certainly not learning how to think for them fucking selves. Well, Ben Franklin went to France X year. And he was there Y amount of years. Who gives a fuck? These kids don't even remember this shit 10 years later. But they would remember how to think for themselves, because that's kind of something you have to do every day, right? Unless you actually don't have to do that, because I can't find a job because I studied lesbian dance theory and I have no marketable skills. Boy, it really gets on my nerves to see these dopey, entitled socialist kids all over social media talking about how they should have their fucking government loans forgiven, right? I went to college. I have $250,000 in debt. It should be forgiven. What'd you study? I studied French literature. Aren't you an American? Does anybody give a fuck about French literature these days? Good God, the French, they don't even give a fuck about that anymore. They're running around in yellow vests trying to oust their president. They have more important things to care about, all right? Good Lord. What do you say? You could be a doctor with that kind of money, right? You spend $250,000 on education, you should be a fucking doctor or a lawyer or some shit. Not have a PhD in fucking French literature. How useful is that? At least when I was in school, they had useful stuff, right? We had the Future Farmers of America, which was essentially like all the ugly people. There were no attractive people in the Future Farmers of America. I don't know why that is, but they were all just big, fat people. Maybe, the fact that their parents were farmers, I guess they had a surplus of food. I don't know. Who fucking knows? Maybe they felt like this great need to eat a lot of cookies with all the fucking milk that their daddy produced from his milk farm. And who the fuck knows? But they were all very unattractive people. The least popular kids. Who knows why they were... I don't know. Farmers only produce ugly kids. Who knows? But, yeah, the Future Farmers of America. We need farmers, right? We need farmers. And they had a car shop, was it? We had a mechanic shop, right? I know we had a Votech. There was actually a Votech Institute. And you could go there, and you could learn auto mechanics and all that other shit. Electronics, plumbing. Do they do any of that now in public school? Do you learn anything in public school that's useful? Except about how being gay is somehow socially acceptable now, right? It's not deviant anymore. We've made it the new normal. We want everybody to be gay so people will stop having babies so much because they're destroying the world. But we want to bring everybody from the third world into the first world, right? And significantly ratchet up the greenhouse gas emission production. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I remember being in Votech. I think I remember building a motor, right? I fucked it up, by the way. I did a horrible job. I think I got an F. But they even had home ec, right? When I was in school, you had classes to teach women how to be women, right? They would teach sewing and cooking and all that good shit. And it was mostly girls that took that class, right? Some guys did take it because they wanted like an easy credit or some shit. Wasn't that easy, though. I think I made a pillow with a duck on it. Got like a D. I thought it was a pretty good fucking pillow. I thought the duck looked very realistic. I thought it was worth more than a D. You try making a pillow. See how good a job you fucking do. I guess my fingers are too fucking fat. I got big sausage fingers. They can't sew too well. But, you used to learn useful fucking skills in school. Now, I don't know what they teach. They got rid of music. I don't know if they still have gym anymore. Probably not, because kids are getting fatter. We got to get rid of gym, too. We can't afford any of it. We need to get rid of all these extracurricular activities so we can hire more propagandists to indoctrinate the kids. Ah, I see. And then they make it illegal, right? You can't keep your kids at home. No, you can't keep your kid at home. You have to send him to school or you have to homeschool him. But Jesus, the wages are too low, Mr. Government Overseer, that both of us have to work. How can we homeschool our kid? Well, then you're going to have to send him to our indoctrination centers where he's guaranteed to become a leftist. Practically guaranteed. Because you have no time to indoctrinate him, to teach him anything useful so we can indoctrinate him. Oh, good Lord. We don't want to confuse what we do with what you do, because what you do might actually be teaching. We're not teaching anything. It's all indoctrination, right? It's crazy. Now, the way schools ought to work, by the way, look at America. What does America spend? I think America spends more than any other country, and we have like some of the worst education. Like Vietnam, like that's a third world country. They got better. They got a better education system. I guess it's because they don't have all that money to throw around, right? So they have to bare bones it and actually work hard to try to educate the kiddies, right? They get too many things to worry about. Yeah, like feeding themselves, and they don't have easy lives, right? Political ideology, that's the last thing on a fucking Vietnamese person's mind, right? They got to eat, right? They're not sitting around wondering about, the oppressed worker. They're lucky if they have a fucking job. They're lucky if they have one meal a day. They're lucky if they can fucking eat, okay? They don't have the luxury of sitting around wondering about the fucking bourgeoisie and the proletariat bullshit like Marx did, who was a fucking layabout leech. The biggest fucking Kramer on the fucking planet. Talk about a mooch, never worked a day in his life, just like fucking Bernie Sanders, right? So a lot of these third world countries who don't have the luxury of being able to sit around and worry about this bullshit, they actually educate their fucking kids, and they do a better job than we do. I think fucking Vietnamese kids get the better grades in science and math than American kids. Imagine that! What they ought to be doing in America, spending all this fucking money. Like, for example, what about a jobs program? What about a fucking jobs program for these kids? I had my first job when I was legally allowed to have a job. By the way, I have an issue with this whole child labor bullshit. They passed all these laws that said kids can't, for example, legally work until they're 14 years old. What a bunch of horse shit. I was working before that, and on the cheap, too. My dad would want something done. He'd give you like a fucking nickel and a kick in the fucking ass, maybe punch in the face. Do that! He was an evil son of a bitch, by the way. May he not rest in fucking peace, scumbag. But I remember my brother. He would be out there swinging a fucking scythe. A fucking scythe! I remember there was this one property near our house, and everybody thought it was fucking haunted. It was this 200-year-old mansion, and it had been kept in very poor condition. It had been vacant for decades, and some old couple bought it. They renovated it, but the yard had grass that was so fucking high, if you tried to cut that on a lawnmower, oh my God. It would have just clogged the fucking thing up. There was no way. There was no way you were cutting that grass. It was like 27 feet tall. If you know how lawnmowers work, well, it would have sucked in all that 27-foot fucking length of grass that could have had lions and tigers and bears, oh my fucking hiding in it, and clogged the whole fucking thing up. So he spent days swinging away with a literal fucking scythe. He looked like a death out there. I mean, if he'd had robes on and shit, he could have passed himself off for fucking death. And he was out there swinging away for 2 or 3 days. And how much did he get paid? $20. And I think he had to clear like a couple acres himself with a big fucking scythe. By the way, that seems kind of dangerous to me. My parents, I don't know how old he was. Was he about 14? I mean, if I had a 13, 14-year-old swinging away with a scythe, he might have been younger. Might have only been 12. I would have been concerned, but they weren't concerned. So, yeah. But this was when $20 was a lot of money, right? What was this? How many years ago? Oh, it would have been 40. Oh, more than 40. So, yeah, $20 was actually a lot of money back then. But that was when, people actually worked when they were kids, right? If you wanted money, if you wanted shit, you got a fucking job. You mowed the neighbor's fucking lawn. Your parents made you do work. Why don't they have that in schools? They wasted all this fucking money building all these Department of Education buildings and paying these teachers ridiculous wages. Just have a jobs program in the school where the kids work a few hours a day and get some money. Why not that? Oh, they might actually learn useful skills. Have be able to stand on their own 2 feet and think for them fucking selves. Oh, we can't have that. We need to create future welfare recipients that'll vote for us, the Democrats. This shit just pisses me off so much. I think I've gone a little too long, though. Sorry. I just really makes me angry with the way that Western countries have turned people into just these pathetic schlubs who can't think for themselves and are almost completely useless. Have no real practical skills, right? It's just really depressing, situation we got going on now. But that's what schools ought to do. They ought to have some kind of jobs program that kids could avail themselves of to make some extra money, right? I could actually get behind that, okay? Kids actually learning to do things. And by the way, it could be actual productive stuff. The schools themselves could become producers of some type, right? They could take on some duties done by other government organizations. They could do jobs on government grounds, government properties. I mean, these kids could learn actual real skills. I mean, instead of the old auto shop, I know they don't have that anymore, you could actually have an auto repair shop run by the school that would give highly discounted repairs on automobiles. Not free, of course, because parts cost money, labor costs money, but the kids get paid a reduced wage. The school would make some money. Right? The kids would make some money. And they could do that working on state vehicles or maybe even privately owned vehicles, and then people out in the public would benefit from these reduced costs of students working on their cars. And in turn, the students would learn applicable, useful skills that they could then use later in life. Oh, no, that makes too much sense. That's too practical. No, we can't have that. We got to waste the money so we can go into more debt. Yeah, brilliant.